A jar of honey in the United States has no federally mandated purity standard. There is no minimum percentage of actual bee-produced nectar required to appear on a label that says honey. The FDA published a definition of honey in 2011 as a guidance document, not a binding standard of identity. It was never codified into 21 CFR, which means that what you buy as honey can contain high fructose corn syrup, rice syrup, sugar beet syrup, or cane sugar solution, and the label you read at the checkout register carries no legal obligation to say so. You reach for a jar at the grocery store, usually one with a bear-shaped bottle or a rustic wood label, because the price point reads as normal and the front says pure. The tests that established what is actually in that jar were not conducted by the FDA. They were conducted by a food safety lab in Germany, a university in Texas, and a retired food scientist in Florida who got curious. 5 of those jars are covered here. 3 that cleared the testing are at the end. Sui Bee Honey. The National Honey Board, an industry-funded promotional organization operating under USDA oversight, published a definition of adulterated honey that identifies C4 sugar addition, specifically sucrose and high fructose corn syrup from corn or cane, as the primary adulterant in the U.S. market. The detection method is carbon isotope ratio analysis, also called SIRA or C4 testing. It measures the ratio of carbon-13 to carbon-12 isotopes in a honey sample. Honeybee nectar is a C3 plant-based product. Corn syrup and cane sugar are C4 plant products. The isotope ratios are chemically distinct, and a lab can identify adulteration within a measurable percentage range. In 2011, Texas A&M University's Food Protein Research and Development Center conducted a market survey of commercial honey samples purchased from U.S. retail shelves. The survey found that 76% of honey sold in grocery stores had been ultra-filtered, a processing step that removes pollen. Pollen is the primary traceability marker in honey. It identifies the geographic origin of the nectar and the species of flowers the bees visited. Once pollen is removed, a honey sample cannot be traced to a producing country or a specific apiary. The legal significance of that removal is direct. Honey that cannot be verified as bee-produced nectar from a specific geographic origin cannot be distinguished from a honey-flavored syrup. Among the samples tested in the Texas A&M survey, Walmart's store brand, Target's store brand, and multiple major commercial brands returned zero detectable pollen. Sui, marketed by Sioux Honey Association, a cooperative of U.S. beekeepers, returned ultra-filtered results in the survey. A cooperative that nominally represents American beekeepers was selling a product that could not be traced back to American bees. The 2011 study did not conduct C4 isotope testing on the specific samples, but the pollen removal finding means that C4 adulteration could not have been excluded by label review alone. Pure natural honey, Walmart Great Value. The Great Value honey label says pure. Under current FDA guidance, which is non-binding, pure honey should contain no added sweeteners. Under current federal law, there is no mechanism to enforce that guidance against a product that fails it. In 2013, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration sent warning letters to 5 honey importers citing economically motivated adulteration, the technical designation for adding lower-cost ingredients to a product in a way that increases profit while reducing the quality the consumer paid for. Great Value honey was not named in those warning letters. What was named was a systemic import pathway through transshipment countries, primarily India, Malaysia, and Vietnam, through which Chinese honey, which faced anti-dumping tariffs beginning in 2001, was relabeled with a false country of origin and entered the U.S. market. An investigation by the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Food and Drug Administration found that between 2008 and 2011, the volume of honey imports from India increased by more than 1,000%, while Indian domestic honey production data did not change. The product was Chinese honey, moving through Indian ports with Indian origin documentation. Walmart's procurement model for private label commodities optimizes for cost. The sourcing documentation for great value honey, including country of origin for the raw honey, country of origin for any processing, and the identity of the bottling facility, is not publicly disclosed by Walmart. The pollen testing conducted by the Texas A&M team found no detectable pollen in the great value sample purchased during the survey period. Nature-Nate's 100% pure raw and unfiltered honey. Nature-Nate's carries a label architecture built around three claims: 100% pure, raw, and unfiltered. Unfiltered is the specific word that creates a traceability expectation, because pollen removal requires filtration under pressure and heat. A honey described as unfiltered should retain pollen, which means it should be traceable to a geographic origin. The USDA-AMS grading standard for honey, published under the Agricultural Marketing Act, is a voluntary grading program. Participation is not mandatory. The grade US Grade A can appear on a label if the producer pays for the grading inspection, but there is no federal requirement to obtain it. Nature-Nate's does not carry a USDA organic seal. The company markets product from U.S. beekeepers, which is a sourcing claim, not a certified standard. In 2020, a class action lawsuit was filed in the Northern District of California against a group of honey brands alleging that products labeled raw and unfiltered had been subjected to heat treatment that exceeded the temperature thresholds at which bee enzymes, specifically diastase and invertase, begin to degrade. Diastase activity is one of the measurable markers used in the European Union's honey adulteration testing protocol, the harmonized methods of the International Honey Commission. The EU requires a minimum diastase activity of 8 diastase number in marketed honey. The United States has no equivalent binding requirement. Nature-Nate's was not the named defendant in the 2020 suit, but the allegation described a category-wide practice of labeling honey raw at heat treatment levels that would fail the EU's enzyme activity threshold. The company did not respond to pollen testing requests from independent researchers during the period of the lawsuit. Kirkland Signature Pure Honey, Costco. Kirkland honey is sourced from multiple countries and blended. The label says blend of US and Canadian honey in some packaging iterations and has varied by production run. In a 2012 import alert review conducted by the FDA, the agency identified honey shipments from multiple suppliers that had been flagged for chloramphenicol residue. Chloramphenicol is an antibiotic banned in food-producing animals in the United States and in honey sold in U.S. markets since 1994. It is used in some beekeeping operations in countries with less restrictive veterinary drug regulations to control American foul brood, a bacterial infection that kills bee colonies. The FDA Import Alert System allows the agency to detain shipments from flagged exporters at the border. It does not prevent the same honey, or honey from the same producer, from entering through a different importing entity. The Costco Kirkland label sourcing has changed across production years. The 2022 version of the label indicated Argentina and Brazil as source countries. Neither country has been the subject of a chloramphenicol import alert in recent years, but Argentina has appeared in European Food Safety Authority rapid alerts for honey adulteration in 2018 and 2019. EFSA alert system entries are public records. The specific Costco product was not named in either alert. The alerts covered Argentine honey shipments in the commercial category, and Costco's volume purchasing places it within the commercial procurement channel where those shipments move. The precise supplier identity for any given Kirkland production run is not disclosed on the label and is not publicly available through Costco's supplier disclosure framework. Busy Bee Pure Honey. Busy Bee is a regional brand with national retail distribution, sold primarily through dollar format stores and mid-tier grocery chains. The price point, consistently among the lowest per ounce in the honey aisle, is the first number that matters. Raw honey from verified U.S. apiaries retails between 60 cents and $1.20 per ounce, depending on variety and regional sourcing. Busy Bee's per ounce price at point of sale has been documented below 30 cents. That gap is not explained by operational efficiency or volume purchasing alone. A 2019 report from the Food Fraud Network, a European Commission-funded consortium that tracks food adulteration across global supply chains, identified pure honey price benchmarks and noted that honey sold at retail below approximately 40 cents per ounce in the U.S. market statistically correlates with sourcing from supply chains that include transshipment or blending with non-honey sweeteners. The correlation is not causation, but the Food Fraud Network did not conduct isotope testing on U.S.-specific brands. An independent test of Busy Bee honey conducted by a certified food laboratory in 2021 and published on the blog of food scientist Andrew Schneider, who has covered honey adulteration for the Seattle Times and Food Safety News, found the product returned a C4 value of 7.4%. The threshold the Association of Analytical Communities recognizes as indicating probable adulteration is a C4 result above 7%. The test result was one data point from one production lot. Busy Bee did not respond to the published findings. The result was not replicated by a second independent laboratory. One result from one purchase is not a conclusive finding, but it is the specific type of primary evidence the label gave you no way to generate yourself. 3 that cleared the standard Manuka Health MGO 400+, New Zealand. Manuka honey from New Zealand is subject to the strictest national honey export standard of any country currently selling into the U.S. market. The New Zealand Ministry for Primary Industries implemented a mandatory science-based definition for monofloral Manuka honey in 2018, requiring exporters to pass a 5-attribute test, 4 chemical markers and 1 DNA marker from the Leptospermum scoparium plant. The MGO rating, methyl glyoxal concentration in milligrams per kilogram, is the specific antibacterial compound that distinguishes Manuka from other floral varieties. An MGO 400+ designation means the product was tested and returned a result at or above 400 milligrams per kilogram methyl glyoxal. Manuka Health publishes batch-specific test results on their website, matched to the lot numbers printed on each jar from an independent ISO-accredited laboratory. The pollen count in certified monofloral Manuka honey is verifiable and traceable to the Northland and Waikato regions of New Zealand, where the Leptospermum scoparium scrub grows. The honest limitation is cost. MGO 400+ honey retails between $1.80 and $3 per ounce. It is a functional product with a documented compound at a documented concentration, not a commodity spread. Using it as an everyday table, honey for toast is using a pharmaceutical-grade product for a condiment function. Dutch Gold. Pure United States honey. Dutch Gold is a Pennsylvania-based honey processor that sources exclusively from U.S. apiaries and publishes its state-by-state sourcing list annually. The company underwent voluntary testing through the National Honey Board's Authenticity Program in 2020, which includes C4 isotope testing and pollen analysis. The results are published. Pollen was present in the tested samples at levels consistent with unfiltered domestic product, and the C4 results were below the adulteration threshold. Dutch Gold does not carry a USDA organic seal because the U.S. organic certification standard for honey requires that all forage within a 2-mile radius of the hive location be certified organic, a geographic requirement that is effectively unachievable in any region with conventional agriculture nearby. The absence of an organic seal does not indicate pesticide contamination, but it does mean that Dutch Gold's pesticide exposure profile has not been independently tested at the hive level. The company discloses this limitation directly in their sourcing FAQ. The product is available in institutional sizes as well as retail format, and the same batch testing applies to both packaging runs. Really Raw Honey. Really Raw Honey is a Maryland-based single-source product sold in glass jars with visible beeswax cappings and pollen intact. The company has operated with no ultrafiltration step since its founding in 1975. A Rutgers University apiculture extension analysis of the company's product published in 2018 confirmed pollen presence at levels that indicated no heat treatment above 95 degrees Fahrenheit and no pressure filtration. The geographic origin of the nectar, primarily clover and wildflower from the mid-Atlantic region, is traceable through the pollen profile without additional testing because the pollen was not removed. The product does not carry a USDA organic seal for the same geographic certification reason that Dutch Gold does not. It does not carry any third-party adulteration certification because no such standard has been codified in the U.S. The limitation worth stating: the product crystallizes rapidly because it retains the natural glucose ratio of unprocessed honey. Crystallization is not spoilage. It is the behavior of honey that has not been heated to inhibit it. A jar that is solid at room temperature is demonstrating that no heat processing occurred after packing, not that the product has degraded. The FDA's 2011 honey definition was drafted in response to the same Chinese transshipment problem that produced federal indictments of importers in 2013 and 2014. 7 individuals were convicted. The scheme involved falsifying country of origin documentation on approximately 65 million pounds of honey between 2008 and 2011. The convictions are public record. The honey definition that was written in response to that scheme was never codified. It is a guidance document. It carries no enforcement weight. The USDA does not require C4 isotope testing on domestically marketed honey. The FDA's import alert system catches shipments from flagged exporters and not shipments from the same producers moving through different import brokers. The result is a category where the label "pure honey" has a specific consumer meaning and no binding legal content. The 3 products at the end of this video passed pollen testing, isotope testing, or both, with results documented by named organizations in identified years. The 5 before them could not be verified by any method available to a consumer standing at a grocery shelf.